In Sydney, where I'd lived for 5 years, I was working in post-production, but also I was a filmmaker in my spare time, which I like to call a professional hobby.
Oh, okay. So can you give us an introduction of some of the films that you've worked on?
Yeah, so I work very closely with my best friend of 13 years, Nathan Keane, and he directs. I usually write and produce. We write together, and we'd made a few short films over the years. Our first one together was in 2009, just short films for the time being. And so we made films about once every 2 years, and we would put them out onto the festival circuit, and we've won a few awards, and we've got into several festivals, so we've been fairly successful, but we're hoping soon to take it full time.
Okay, well, that's awesome. So one of your films is actually on YouTube now that everyone can go and watch, correct? Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I think the one you're referring to is Disarm.
Yeah, that's right, Disarm.
It's a LGBT, a gay film about two men who meet in a hotel room, initially for sex, but they have a confrontation and then they have a conversation. It's 20 minutes long, and it explores the ideas of male performativity, which is kind of a term we coined. The idea that men put on this macho facade and it limits their potential for connection between each other. So it's got I think it's about 800,000 views so far. It's been quite popular. You could say it's gone viral in the last few years. And we've had lots of really good feedback too. It won one major award in Sydney, and it screened at over 20 festivals around the world back in 2010.
Nice, awesome. Now, this is 2010. Now, what's going on in 2017?
Well, in my filmmaking professional hobby side of things, the most recent success I would say would be finishing a 30-minute horror twisted fairy tale short film called Little Boy Blue. Okay. And that's been in 27 festivals, I think, so far in the last 12 months. And it's won 15 awards, so that's been really great. But that film has definitely made me ride the roller coaster of life in many ways. I've been up and down and up and down and up and down because it was such a incredible kind of feat to complete.
Sure. Now, I know you're still facing some legal troubles with that movie, so if you could say what you possibly can say about the film without getting yourself in some hot water. Like, what happened behind the scenes that made this movie, Little Boy Blue, dare I say, a living hell to,
yes, you might be right.
to say?
I guess there's no real legal issues, but there could be, so that's why we're going to dance around.
Okay, sure.
But basically, yeah, so that was a film. It's about a little girl who discovers a boy held captive in a barn, forms a friendship with him, and helps him escape from the barn. So quite a simple concept, but involved a crew of up to 50, which was shot over 15 days within a 12-month period.
Sure. Now, where did you get the funds to pay for all these people? Because if it's just a hobby for you right now, I'm assuming these movies aren't just a hobby for everyone else, and it costs a little bit of money.
Filmmaking is expensive.
Right.
We initially funded $10,000 through crowdfunding.
Nice.
That was when the budget was set at $40,000.
Okay.
And we knew we'd have to put in a bit of money ourselves. So Nathan and I split the remaining $30,000 that we'd have to pay, 15 each, which didn't seem too much of a burden on us, and we could pay it back within a year or two.
Sure.
If we worked really hard. But that's not what actually happened. So we were rushed into production because the owners of the farm we were using, that we had to shoot on because it was just such a spectacular, unique location with this incredible barn on it. The owners kind of got a whiff of what we were making, a film where a little boy is held captive and abused in a barn. And to them, that sort of rang alarm bells that, this was a snuff film, and they got quite concerned. And luckily at that point, they'd already signed the location release, and they felt that they would allow us to shoot. But we were fairly unprepared at that stage, even though we'd signed the location release for those dates. We wanted to kind of push it back, but we decided we would push ahead, go into it. And so we did. And we shot for 1 week initially, and then we got back into the edit suite after shooting for that first week, knowing that we had another week of the shoot to complete. and we had got some amazing footage, and it had been an incredible kind of crazy week with every kind of weather you could imagine. We got stuck in a what felt like a cyclone for one moment.
Oh, wow.
But we had some incredible footage, and we had to kind of work out what we were going to do, because we'd actually spent the entire budget at that point. We'd spent $40,000
in half the time.
In half the time, yeah.
Okay,
so
sure.
There was some budgeting issues. Things turned out to be more expensive than we expected.
Okay.
Lots of last minute costs, which is something you learn as a filmmaker. I mean, this is all just a learning process. But what happened was we got back into the edit suite. We were so happy with some of the amazing shots and performances that we'd got that we decided that we would do whatever we could to find the money and to finish the film. Because if we weren't going to finish the film, then it would just feel like a $40,000 waste.
Sure. You've already committed so much so far. So then how much did the film cost you in total?
Well, that's a figure that I don't like to expose. Like to expose publicly.
Okay, sure.
But I can say that it was over $50,000 in the end.
Okay.
And it was expensive, and that's one of the reasons I'm here in China.
Yeah, right.
China has allowed me to work quite cheaply and save money, so I've been able to get ahead on my debts paying back this film.
Sure.
I have to say that I don't regret the film in any way. Like, things cost money, and in the end, money is just energy. It's just, people get very, very stressed about money, but at the end of the day, it's just money. So it has to be paid back, but I have no regrets about making the film. It was an excellent learning experience. I think it's come out really well. It's done really well on the festival circuit, and I'm hoping after this year it can open a few more doors and turn my career into.
Well, then how does a small short film make money?
It doesn't.
It doesn't. Okay.
Very rarely. If it's nominated for an Oscar, maybe it can make some money being sold to a distribution company that is distributing the 10 best Oscar short films. There might be some money.
Okay.
Downloads on iTunes, something like that.
Okay.
It could be sold to a rev share distribution company that may put it online, and users would pay a subscription fee, and then some of that revenue would go towards the makers of the film. It could be sold on to be part of a DVD collection, but these things are rare, and even if they do happen, they don't pay that much money. I'm talking there's no way I would ever make back the budget for this film simply off selling this short film.
Yeah.
I think it would have to be extremely rare. You'd have to have a major star in the role.
Okay, so then why do people do it? If it's not a financial return, it seems like, a place where you're going to be constantly bouncing back and forth between Australia and China if you keep this cycle going.
That's right. Yeah, this is a one-off thing. I'll never make a short film of this kind of budget ever again out of my own money.
Okay. Sure.
I'll only do it if someone pays me to do it.
Okay, sure, right.
So, so the simple reason people make short films is practice. They just want to practice their art.
Okay.
And also open some doors, make some contacts.
Right.
Festivals are fantastic places to make contacts and meet other filmmakers and distributors and agents and that sort of thing. So if you've got a work that you're promoting, it makes it much easier for someone to get a sense of you, know what you can do, what you can't do, what you like to do, and it can open some doors in that way.
Well, very excellent. So after your film kind of got out of control, a little bit, and you decided to do what some people do, is they come to China to make a little bit of extra flash cash.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
Well, my best friend Nathan, who I mentioned I work with very closely with my filmmaking, he didn't really like his job in Sydney. He was a teacher there. Okay. And his partner didn't really like, or wasn't enjoying Sydney. So they were thinking of going somewhere else, and they basically said to me, will you come if we go somewhere else around the world? Okay. And at that time I was working in post-production full-time for a really excellent company who were just, I will always imitate how well they treated me in my company if I ever own my own company, because they did treat me so well. And it was great, but at the end of the day it was also an office job, and I knew that that I wanted to be a filmmaker and I wanted to do that full-time. So I had to say goodbye to that job, and I decided to go with Nathan to China, to that place around the world that eventually turned out to be China.
Okay, so did you go anywhere else before China?
No, I didn't. And in fact, I said to Nathan, I'm happy to go anywhere in the world with you, but not China.
Hello, China. Welcome, Will.
Yeah, and the reason that happened was because China pays the most money.
Yeah.
And you can come here and you can get a job very easily without a lot of experience.
Or qualifications.
Or qualifications
or much of anything, which is kind of...
Except, and unfortunately this is just one of those sad facts, white skin.
Yeah, it's very true. It's a pretty harsh reality, but that is kind of the white privilege that even exists in Asia, is people kind of want a white-looking person
in
front of the whiteboard.
Movies or
who
looks like one of those people.
There's sort of like this idea that people want to reaffirm their beliefs on what a foreigner is, so it's kind of got to have a certain look, certain behavior, and people will pay money just to see it. They don't really care, dare I say, sometimes at the end of the day, at the quality of the education.
I like to say my job is 90% being white and turning up on time.
Okay.
Because
I think that's cynical, but
it is cynical, But it's you really do realize it here in China. You realize that white privilege and how much of a head start you have being born as a Caucasian.
Sure.
That really becomes clear. Not to say that there aren't African American and darker colored teachers. There are. But I can tell you, one of my friends faced extreme racism because he was Asian and coming to China.
Yeah, surprisingly.
Trying to be a teacher and speaking perfect English, but looking like a Chinese person.
Sure.
It's just not going to fly.
Right, and it's all about that image in Asia, about do you kind of match the role of what it looks like to be a foreign teacher? And that's really what a lot of companies will try to sell you on, is the look that they have this person.
Yeah.
And if it's an Asian-looking person, then it doesn't really look like they're a foreigner, so it doesn't look like they're like a native English speaker, which is really messed up and just kind of wrong on so many different levels. But this is not exclusive to China. I mean, this exists in Korea. This exists in Japan from my teaching experiences. There's one lady, I tried to have a substitute for me when I went to my sister's wedding for 2 weeks. And she had 7 years of teaching experience.
Right.
And she had worked at the same type of hagwon that I was working at because it was a national chain, right?
Hagwon was the brand of
Hagwon is a training center. Right. I won't say the name, just just to be nice. But she worked at the same brand of hagwons, and she had 7 years teaching experience. And I was like, well, I need a substitute for these 2 weeks while I'm gone at my sister's wedding. And the director of the hagwon was like, no, she's black. I don't want black people. And it was just so messed up and wrong. I was shaking. I was so angry. I was so pissed off that you're denying this woman who's more experienced than I am, who's worked here at this sort of institution longer than I have, all based on the image itself, which is really disheartening and sad. And I don't know what else you can say about it. It's just the way the world works sometimes. I don't know.
It exists, and I think the important thing to do is to realize that white privilege is there, and to help help sounds like charity, but it's not that. It's to acknowledge that you do have a head start, and
sure,
and that it's not just because you're incredibly talented.
Sure.
It's because it's a visual
right,
thing.
Right. I'd say it exists. For better or for worse, it's there, and you can't really change it. I think you can make good references. Because I eventually got the lady to do that woman that I recommended. That's 7 years, because I was like, she's the best one. She's the best one. She the other option was this white dude, and we looked at his Facebook photos, and he was just shit-faced drunk in all of his Facebook photos. And it's okay, here's substitute 1, here's substitute 2. It's if you choose substitute 1, which is drunk guy who's just plastered in all of his Facebook photos, over this one, it's you clearly don't know what you're doing at all. And I was really pushing for this lady, and I think that's something that you can do, I guess, to help.
I think that's an important thing to note, that China attracts many different types of people.
Sure.
And sometimes it can attract people that are not functioning in Western society or running away from
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
So I've definitely heard of stories of people that are alcoholics coming here or drunks and
Or it's just like
causing a
drug
lot of
addicts,
trouble.
just like a
Drug
lot
addicts,
of yeah. There's those sort of kind of folk exist in China. They exist everywhere.
They might be high functioning, but they eventually
Crash and burn. Yeah. I mean, it exists everywhere, and I would say just if you're coming to China, don't spend too much time around these sort of folks. Yeah. Especially the drug ones. Like, you can be kind of a public alcoholic here, that's not so bad, but the drug laws are really, really strict here, and you can get yourself in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So
So the next question we're gonna come to is, what have you learned from your experience? Yes. What is China put inside of Will Faulkner that cannot come out?
Oh, okay. They can't come out.
Yeah. How have you changed? Yeah.
Okay, so well, one thing I could say, and I learned this within the first 2 weeks, is where my limits are. Okay. And I think when you're living in happy-go-lucky Western society, safe Australia, which was relatively safe.
Sure.
We actually even don't have guns. Well, we have strict gun laws.
Sure.
You can't really get mass murdered anywhere. That sort of thing, and many other things, many other reasons why Australia is safe. It's far away from places to start with, but you kind of are protected in a lot of ways, and you're not pushed so much. So coming here to China, you are quickly immersed in a very different culture,
right?
And you have to step up to that. And also, having taught for the first time, taught kindergarten, kids can push you to your limit, to a limit that you didn't know existed, and they're just kids. Like, at the end of the day, they can't be blamed. But it's amazing to experience that. Yeah,
very amazing. I would just say the kids part trying to push you exists everywhere, and that's kind of every single teaching job. Right. And so it's not exclusive to China, but I would definitely say the culture itself, since things are very, very loose here, people will try to push you to get a little bit of extra money or something like that. I don't know, have you ever experienced any times with like a cab driver or something trying to just kind of rip you off with like you have a GPS and they're just like, fuck your GPS, I'm gonna just go where I want. And
I haven't had that
okay, I've had this, and I'm like literally telling them like stop, and they're like driving around the block way past my point, and they're just like trying to rack up like a few extra kwai just to like make a few bucks, and and it happens. It's happened like 3 or 4 times now, and I've only been here half a year. Yeah. And it's just like every now and then, like, you get someone that's really trying to, take you for what you can. And I've noticed it with like co-teachers and stuff like that as well. They're like, okay, shove a little more responsibility on this guy. Right. And I think it's because when you come to the country, you're a new face. You kind of got like sucker written on you, even though you don't have sucker written on you. And people, I think so, because I've experienced the same thing like in Korea, definitely, where people want to know how much they can get away with you. And I think it's a good... well,
like you said, I don't think that's unique to China.
No.
Korea. I know it definitely happens in Thailand. Sure. I mean, if you've got money and you're in a country that is impoverished, that's the thing about China, it's very rich and very poor at the same time.
Drastically different.
Even suburbs that are right next door to each other.
Right, true.
Even streets sometimes. There's rich and poor living side by side. And
can I paint a picture of this for the viewers? Okay, so for example, we live in Jiaxing right now, and Jiaxing is surrounded by the government and a bunch of very, very wealthy people. But there's if you go a few blocks away and you cross this bridge over a river, as soon as you cross this bridge, it's just garbage. It's just like garbage on next to the water, like all these like people living in broken old houses. And then on the other side, it's just extremely nice buildings, like sky rises, like 20, 30, 40 floor buildings that are just massive. And it's such a shocking contrast that you just, I'm like, what's going on here? Like, this is the same town, this is the same country, and at times it's just mind-boggling.
I think it's had such an enormous growth recently that the country is just in this huge kind of change.
Right,
and
very much so.
They don't really know how to handle so much money, I think, in a lot of ways.
Well, I think what it is that it's just there's been growth, a lot of growth, but the growth has come in pockets. So not everyone is experiencing the growth, because you can get a nice expensive meal kind of in this area for like 60, 70 kwai, right? But then if you go over like to like Rongguei or Daliang, you can pay like 10, 14, 15, 16 kwai for like those like kind of more traditional style kinds of Chinese restaurants where they might be in like someone's house, a bit smaller, not as like decked out, with like the menu written on the wall sort of thing.
What's that, just for your viewership, in US dollars? That's about $12 versus $2, right?
Yeah, 12 to 2 or like $1.50. It's yeah. It's insane. It's just insane where you're just like, what is going on here? I mean, it's just it's mind-boggling to look at.
Yeah.
Another one, Will. What has China put inside of you that you cannot take out?
So, yeah, I think I haven't experienced the taxi thing that you've really experienced, except for one time when a taxi driver really tried to rip me off. And you're kind of at their mercy. I mean, especially if you can't speak the language. But for me, it was the first time I had taught kindergarten, so I definitely had that experience, whether it was unique to China or not. I had that experience of having to step up to teach kids, and like I said, they can really push you. So I remember in the first 2 weeks, some of the kids in my class I remember just like one time screaming at one kid who was just being a little shit, and stepping back and going, whoa. I had to stop myself and be like, whoa, okay.
Who am I? Right, yeah.
Sweating and just like, and then like I'd said like quiet or something like that, and the kid had gone, quiet, and I just wanted to like.
But I think what you did is kind of normal. Like some of the co-teachers I've seen before do some ridiculous.
I've never hit a kid.
Yeah.
We've both seen some of our co-teachers.
We've seen some weird
aggressive
stuff. Very aggressive. Do you want to talk about it?
I wouldn't say I haven't seen anything really like wrong or illegal.
Okay.
But I've just seen things that are extremely aggressive and shouldn't be done. You know?
Yeah.
I would say that it's kind of psychological teasing.
Okay.
So even last week I had one co-teacher just dangle one of the kids' shoes above them and pretend, as the kid was crying and grabbing onto their clothing and just kind of tease them with it.
Yeah.
Or you might see that a co-teacher's just having a tirade, screaming at a kid for 15 minutes while they're crying. Sure.
They'll stop class and they'll just scream and scream and scream and scream and scream and scream and scream, and you're just like, Jesus.
Yeah. And the kid's in tears.
Yeah.
Just like sweating and shaking.
Right.
They're 4 years old.
They're 4 years old. Keep this in mind. It's not like they're like 16-year-old punks who like stole money and bought cigarettes with it. It's like they're 4 years old and they're not sitting on their chair right. It's like, Jesus Christ. Like, oh man, I should I say one? I don't know.
If you want to be specific, you can.
Kind of want to.
Names have been changed.
Names haven't. Yes. So let's call this woman Sherry. Sherry was very upset at one of my students because he wasn't sitting correctly in his chair, and Sherry grabbed the chair and just threw it across the room.
I've had the chair throw.
The chair throw is classic. Yeah. It just goes off and off and off.
This is like a wooden chair that maybe weighs 4 kilos or 3 kilos.
Yeah.
Maybe 3 kilos.
Wait, you did the big chair or the small chair?
Small chair.
Oh, okay.
She grabbed the big chair.
No, not the big chair. No, she grabbed the small chair and she whipped it across the room, and she's like, she's like, you don't deserve to be sitting, and yada yada you're garbage, and like,
and the chair doesn't break.
The chair doesn't break, but the kid's like insides break. He's just like, what the fuck is going on?
A grown woman just throwing a chair 5 meters across a
right.
a tiled floor.
They can't get the concept of like standing perfectly in a line. I don't think they're gonna get what this woman is going on and on about him for.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to say. It's nuts, and it's the way it is at the same time. Like, it's just like, at first it's probably my biggest culture shock just being there. I'm just like, wow.
You really start to understand children's personalities, because not every child is born to follow orders and be the perfect little princess or the perfect little prince.
Sure. I think that's people's personalities, because I think
People's
it
personalities,
snowballs as they get older and older. Anyway, keep going.
What do you mean by snowballs?
Like you can see when you go to these kindergartens who's going to be the naughty kids.
Yeah.
Who's going to be the popular kids, and you can kind of point out like which direction these kids are going to go in, unless something drastic like happens to like shift their life. But you can kind of see the course there, and it generally comes honestly from the parents. You can look at the parents and see the personalities reflected in their kids.
That's right. Yeah. Whether that's genetic or environmental, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to think that this is completely natural that you have bad kids and good kids, and it's really just in order for the herd to exist, you have to have a whole range of personalities.
You do, right?
Yeah, it would not be beneficial to have all the kids be nice, happy-go-lucky kids. You have to have the ones that push boundaries, and that are brave or vulnerable in other ways. That aren't just going to follow orders and keep their feelings on the inside. There's a whole range of different emotions and personalities that really work together. So this is what I think when I'm really angry or frustrated at a bad kid or a naughty boy, I just remember they're just kids, and this is just who they are. They're not. This is how their chemical balance has made them to be in a lot of ways.
So then, how does Will Faulkner punish his kids in class?
How have I punished them, or how would I?
You don't throw the chair, right?
About punishing
okay. Let's go with how you actually punish them. Like fantasies aside, like I do a different approach instead of screaming, because I know at the end of the day, just like if I'm screaming at them in Chinese or English or Japanese or whatever language it may be, they're not going to understand like the entirety of the situation. I sit them down. I actually ask, and I have the 5 rules in my class: no punching, no kicking, no fighting, no pushing, and just be good. And I just make them recite the rules, because generally they're breaking one of those rules, and I can be like, who were you fighting with? Who were you, who did you push? And then they can generally be like, yeah, you pushed Michael again, didn't you? Sort of deal.
And say sorry?
Generally I make them say sorry if it's a big mess up. If it's a small one, I'll just make them recite the rules. Sometimes I'll make them hug each other if it's like a pretty nasty fight, and they're just like, I don't want to hug you. But like, it's like, well, you messed up. You gotta do something for it.
What's really worked in my classroom is my money.
Okay.
I give away fake paper money, 1 yuan, which is about 20 Australian cents, 12 US cents. It's not real money, it's fake paper money, but when the kids are good at the end of each lesson, they might get 1 yuan, and they save that up and they can use it to buy a gift or a toy at the end of each week. So we have a money counting at the end of the week.
Cool.
And that's been really successful, because I've only implemented it this semester. Last semester, it didn't really... I didn't have it, and the kids were much naughtier. But this semester, almost as soon as I say the word money, the kids will sit up straight in line.
Nice. Yeah. Cool. Well, awesome. So, Will, you're unfortunately leaving me, and you're leaving all of China.
Sorry.
To go back to Australia.
That's right. Yeah.
The land of kangaroos, not kiwis, no.
Not kiwis.
And all other great things that Australia has that I do not know about.
I'm excited to go home, friends and family, and food that I like.
Sure.
All the food that I like.
Okay. Then we'll take a U-turn there. What's the deal with the Chinese food? You don't
Chinese
like it?
food, I don't know. Everyone told me it was beautiful before I came here, and I was really looking forward to it.
Okay.
I've eaten some good Chinese food, but my opinion on a whole is that it's not my favorite type of cuisine. It's not for me. It's too oily. It's too bony. Like all the meat has bones in it.
Sure. That's a difficulty.
Of course, like Asian food tends to use all the animal, and you get all the gizzards and stuff. I'm not opposed to that.
I would say that's very much not in Japan, but sort of
even
thing.
In Japan, yakitori, you're eating like little chicken hearts.
Yeah, you can eat the hearts and stuff like that. Yeah, I guess that's true. That's true if you do like the yakiniku stuff. Okay.
Yeah, but even so, like I'm not opposed to that. Even so, I find it oily and just not very tasty and really basic. It's kind of poverty food in a lot of ways, even at the rich restaurants.
Oh.
Maybe I have. That's harsh, but maybe I haven't eaten
a little
in the right
harsh.
places.
Okay, I think the thing is, I've had good Chinese food, excellent Chinese food, and it was not from the school. The food that if you're gonna eat at your school and your school provides you food, lower your notches like 3 or 4 points, and
well, that's it. I eat the majority of my meals at the school.
Right,
so
right.
That's my main kind of.
Now, I kind of had a similar opinion until I've had home-cooked Chinese food. Home-cooked Chinese food where it's some sort of family recipe, whether it's dumplings, chicken, fish, whatever it is, it's just somehow next level a lot better. Because they're not trying to skimp out on the materials and try to, like, just feed these people. It's more like something that's made with love, and you can definitely taste the quality upgrade where it's just like, oh, these dumplings are just going to, they're changing life right now.
Right. Okay.
It's like, how can dumplings be so good? But then you go to the school and you eat the dumplings there, and you're just like, how can dumplings be so interesting?
And cooking for 600 people in a day.
You can't expect the best, right? So, and at the end of the day,
it's free.
It's free. It is free, and so you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
So was that the tipping point? Is that your tipping point?
No, I can deal with the food, and there's quite a few regular meals that I can eat, especially in this area. I'm a big fan of the Vietnamese restaurant around the corner.
Sure.
It has beautiful food.
Very good.
Pizza Hut, it's always good.
Boo.
And there's a few other little dishes like that I really enjoy from Chinese restaurants, but
as a whole, it's not for you.
I can usually eat everything, hot, spicy.
I think it's difficult for you because you don't have an average diet. You have a gluten allergy, right?
I'm not just one of those hipsters that says they're gluten-free. I
Right.
A food allergy intolerance.
So I think you're missing out a lot of food, in all honesty, because
I
there's
avoid dumplings and things like that.
Sure.
Wheat.
Sure. And because of that, I think there is a lot of wheat and kind of gluten-based foods in Chinese cuisine.
Yeah.
So I think with what you're left with isn't.
Yeah.
It's not very good. It's not a very good representation of Chinese
food.
If
I chose those meals, but at the same time, everything seems to be rice based in this area.
Sure.
And so I've been able to eat more than maybe if I was living in Shanghai or Beijing, where there's a lot of noodles and dumplings, and it's more of a wheat based diet up there.
Okay. Sure. So then, what was the tipping point? What made Will Faulkner go back to Australia?
I have another dream, like my filmmaking, and I think in order to pursue my filmmaking in China, I would have to really study Chinese and make a lot of contacts in China. And I would rather go back to Australia. I want to start a video company.
Sure.
Making videos as a way to earn a bit of income. I don't want to work full time anymore for someone else. I want to work for myself, and I want to have more time to write, because that's what takes the most time. All those big films that you see on Netflix or at the cinema, they just took so long to write usually, and it's the process of development and getting a film up is such a full-time job in itself. If it seems easy, it was probably extremely difficult in terms of composing characters and stories. So I've realized after the last 10 years of working full-time that I just need the time to write. It can't be avoided.
Okay. So then, final questions before we come to the end of the show.
Sure.
There's a new guy or girl or person, and they just bought their plane ticket. They've got this bright smile on their face, and you run into them at the airport. And you say, "Hey, where are you going?" And they say back, "Hey, I'm going to work in China and live there for 1 year." What's your advice to any newbie coming over here?
Well, I've had an excellent year.
Okay,
excellent. I really have.
Okay, now how do you...
Everything aside, I think it's been fucking awesome.
How did you make it excellent? What can they do to replicate your success?
Travel on weekends often, see China, because there's so many beautiful things to see in China. It is a spectacular country. I'm personally a fan of natural wonders, and you could spend an entire year seeing all the amazing forests and mountains and the deserts and the lakes, and the temples that are in those areas. They're just really stunning places. So I think this person that would be my recommendation. Make sure you see all those places because they're spectacular. And maybe, I would recommend it to them. I think they're going to have an excellent time.
Okay, cool.
There's lots I would say. I'm not sure if that's enough for this.
No, that's completely good. That's completely good. Well, thank you, sir. Thank you for coming on the show.
Cool, thank you.
Well, good luck in Australia and good luck with your business.
Thank you. All right.
All right, everyone, thanks for watching.
See you later.
See ya.
Bye.